Hello everyone, welcome to the YouTube channel of Pune National HRD Network. I am Neena Kamal with the latest episode of PeoplePoint. We are recording this episode on the auspicious Republic Day of India and at the same time, very special because it's an Australia Day as today's our guest has joined us all the way from Australia, Brisbane. So let's just hope that we do our part in making our country a better place and also this world a better place. As I said, our guest today, Mr. Faiyaz Devjee, has joined us from Brisbane, Australia. He is the HR head of ANZ. Faiyaz is an executive people leader with focus on adding value to the organization commercially while managing the stakeholders effectively. He has worked on projects related to change management, leaders' development in the areas of performance and accountability. He has successfully developed and executed people strategy along with culture management to deliver business alignment, leading to profit goals and overall organization vision. His experience includes managing global teams in diverse industries, developing and designing organization structures to meet market conditions, improving productivity via capability management and development. Faiyaz has worked in academia as well as in the commercial sector in countries like New Zealand, Australia, and the Americas. Um, Today we are going to discuss about HR strategy with him and wishing everyone a happy Republic Day and happy Australia Day as well. Faiyaz, a very warm welcome to People Point. Thank you so much for taking out time and joining us today.
Thank you, Neena. It is an absolute pleasure. And thank you to PeoplePoint for having me on the show or the program. And thank you to the National HRD Network and the Pune chapter. And in particular, thanks to Aman Rajavali, who has very kindly invited me. And thank you to you for hosting it.
Thank you so much. So shall we start?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we are going to discuss about building HR strategy. And my first question for you is, what should be the starting point for any kind of HR strategy conversation? What factors need to be considered when we are thinking about building the strategy, annual strategy or quarterly strategy?
Absolutely. Look, fantastic starting point. And in my experience over the years, the HR strategy can't be a separate element in the organization. It has to be part of the business strategy of the organization. A large number of HR professionals who work in HR, who lead the HR program, are creating a strategy that is their own strategy. It needs to be linked to the business strategy. It needs to be linked to the growth. The key point of any strategy has to be, how does HR add value to the organization? And there are a number of elements how HR can add value. Firstly, HR has to look at what is the strategy that the organization has. If the organization has a growth strategy, then it's really important the HR element is focused towards growth, retention, bringing the appropriate skills and knowledge into the organization, retaining those skills and knowledge, and maintaining a balance where HR strategy is not the second cousin. HR strategy has to be part of the overall strategy. So one of my biggest frustrations is, and I'm not suggesting anybody on watching this is doing this, my biggest frustration is when HR becomes the reactive model. If you have your own HR strategy that kind of sits on the outside, that we are looking after people and we are here to help people and we are here to look after people. Yes, that is our job. That's why it's called human resources. But the question I always ask any HR professional is that by you being existing in that business, you working in that business, how are you adding value? And the HR strategy element has to be part of that program to be able to go, how am I adding value and how is the HR department adding value? And that value has to be, to me, has to be bottom line dollar. So
Yeah.
it's not about adding value at different levels. It is, an organization is there to make profit. If you want to help people, my strong recommendation is join social work, and that's where you can help people. HR has to add value to the dollar of the organization. So if it's a publicly listed company, then the shareholder is going to question, how does HR add value? And if you can prove that, you can show it part of your strategy through growth, through retention, through attraction, through people development, through performance management. Sitting on the table, when I say sitting on the table, means working closely with the executive team, not waiting for the executive team to call you, but being with the executive team, sitting next to the CEO. Any organization has got operations, finance, people. And under operations, you can put in business development, marketing, communication, etc. Those three elements make up any organization. The CEOs at the heart of that. You are part of that tri group, as I call it. You work closely with finance, closely with operations, closely, and HR leads it. If you can do that, that's where your strategy starts, not separate to the organization.
True. Very true. Brilliant one. So, just extension of this is, then what are some of the common mistakes done while building HR strategy? So, what needs to be avoided and why?
In my, and sorry, I'm smiling because it is a question that sits quite heavy in my head when HR professionals create a strategy. And the common mistakes people make is, in HR, because we are human resources, it's the reactive part of that HR strategy. So we will design a list of courses that we think people need to attend.
Yes.
Any learning is intrinsic, as you would know very well, and the listeners would know very well. It is how, what we want to learn, and you're only going to get value out of that learning if you want to learn it. So creating a course that is there for the organization but does not add value to the individual is not going to be beneficial. So when you create a strategy, you got to think, and I always tell people, you got to think from the floor. So if you're a manufacturing firm, you got to think how the process worker, the manufacturing employee, is going to be impacted by my strategy. It is a great idea to build a strategy in the boardroom, in an AC, PowerPoint, sit there. After you do the strategy, go and have dinner, have some wine, and you kind of feel great, excellent, well done. It is the implementation of the strategy, the impact of your decision that has on the employee, which I classify as the mailroom person. We don't have mailroom people anymore because we use email a lot. But there was a time when we had mailroom people who sorted out the mail when it came in. How does it impact that individual? That is where the thought comes in. When you create a strategy, you got to think from that point of view. So the strategy has to be built bottom up, not top down. Now that is one mistake most organizations make, because it is top down. Two, the cost factor that goes in. Oh, we want to run leadership development programs, and it's going to cost us $250,000. How does that $250,000 bring benefit to the organization? What is the return going to be? So the return on investment in your strategy has to be articulated. So that's point two, where people miss out. Point three is, what the future of learning in any organization, as you would know very well, is micro skilling.
Yeah.
You got to focus on how quickly can this learning be implemented. How are the skills going to be implemented? How is it going to impact the operations? Is the operations going to be, will improve? Where is the productivity going to come from? Because at the end of the day, if I as an individual am not growing, the organization is not going to grow. So if it benefits me personally, it's going to benefit the organization. People talk about in HR strategy that dollar is really important, and we need to pay people to market rates. Dollar is important, don't get me wrong. We all have mortgages, we all have expenses, we all have car payments. But at the end of the day, dollar is not everything that is going to drive, or a rupee is not going to drive the individual. It is the environment that is going to drive the trust factor. How do you build trust in an HR strategy? It is by implementing the program that you've got. If you build the strategy bottom up, you will have trust because you have thought about the individual who's working at the lowest rank in the organization. So keeping in mind the three key things is, if you're going to spend $250,000, you got to think on how you're going to return that $250,000 to the organization, which is via productivity, by retention, by internal growth for the employees that are there, and the employees' growth.
Very true. So, Faiyaz, what I heard is two excellent perspectives or aspects, rather. So, for example, as an HR leader, we all need to understand that commercial organizations are going to be very particular about HR strategy, which will deliver the business results. That is where we have to understand that we are not working in a social work kind of an environment. It's a commercial environment. But at the same time, we can't forget that we are our end user. Our customers are the internal employees who are not driven by the dollar value, but they are driven by the environment, and they're driven by the overall uh, satisfaction they get out of the job and how it is impacting their own personal lives. Now, creating a balance in these two things is the skill what HR strategists need to show.
110%, and you hit the nail on the head there. And a number of years ago, I did a basic analysis on how much time I spend at home. I only got one child. How much time do I spend with my one son in those days? And how much time do I spend at work? And it worked out as I was interacting. We were under the same roof, but my interaction with my son was only up to 3 hours a day. And then I had the weekends with him as well. But that, and I'm spending more time at work. So the question I asked myself, where do I want to be happier? And this is a very controversial point I'm making, but where do I want to be happier? Do I want to be happier at work, or do I want to be happy at home? Of course, I want to be happy at home. That's my family. That, my wife, my child, that's my family. My parents, that's my family. But I'm spending more time at work. If I'm unhappy at work, do I carry that unhappiness home? 110%. But if I'm unhappy at work, do I carry it to work? Yes, but to a very small extent. The reverse impact of unhappiness at home into the workplace is limited, but unhappiness at work to your home life is a huge impact. The reason being, we spend more time at work. So as HR professionals and creating a strategy, you need to look at that the point you are making is the whole environment, just not the money part, just not the learning part, just not the productive part, just not having a table tennis table there, or having special days for HR or for the employees that HR generally drives. But it is the overall well-being of the employee that will keep the employee happy, both male, female, anybody who works within the organization. So that aspect becomes more important, to the point where I believe I need to be happier at work. And I know this will sound very controversial to some of the listeners or the viewers. I want to be happier at work than at home. I want to be happy at home, but I want to be happier at work, if that makes sense.
Because it will create a bigger impact on how I am at home or in my personal life and outside the work as well. Makes sense.
Absolutely.
Now,
Absolutely.
Considering this, the importance of having such balanced and multi-perspective, multi-dimensional understanding while developing HR strategies, uh, what do you think will help us in building robust HR strategies? What kind of approach and attitude and questions from HR leaders' point of view? Like, what do we need to do to be able to do that?
Absolutely. From an HR strategist point of view, or the HR leader point of view, to implement the strategy, the first part that all HR professionals need to work towards, and it's taken me years, so it hasn't happened overnight, is creating a proactive model. When I say proactive model of HR, is solving the problem before it becomes a problem. If you can do the proactivity of your HR process, then that helps. So that's part one. Part two, becoming the trusted advisor to your stakeholders. So stakeholder management is very, very important. because with that stakeholder management, you are creating trust. So even if you're an HR advisor or HR business partner or an HR leader, we all have stakeholders. I have my own stakeholders. I work with my stakeholders literally on a weekly basis. I have a meeting with them on a weekly basis, and it's only a half an hour meeting, but we discuss what's going on, and not only at work, but what's going on in their life. That builds a trust. That question of building trust is a two-way exercise. So I have to be vulnerable to show that yes, I've got feelings, I have bad days, I have good days, and I'm seeking my stakeholders' support as the stakeholders seeking my support. I know my job is to support them, but that is a question that we all need to build. Once you've done that, then you're not it. So, give you an example. If you have to fire an employee from work, 90% of the organization will say, bring HR in so they can fire him or her. My philosophy and my principle is I will provide the manager, the stakeholder, with the skills and the knowledge to be able to undertake that task with HR supporting them. HR is not the bad person or the bad guy in the exercise. We are here to support equally the employee and the manager. So the question to ask when you're building a strategy and implementing a strategy is, how will I build trust with my stakeholders? Which goes from the recruiter who is managing recruitment for managers right up to the head of HR as to how do I build trust. And that building of trust, Neena, I can't emphasize on the importance of just that. Once you build that trust, you're integrated into that, into the business. Still you can, and trust doesn't come overnight. And with trust comes respect. With that comes listening. With that comes understanding. With that comes providing the support. Once you've done that, then you are an equal partner. Because one of my frustrations in life is when HR is treated as the second cousin.
Yes.
Sit at the back. We will call you when we need you. No, you will not call me when you need me, because I'm going to sit here and I'm going to work with you. Because if I don't know what you're thinking, and if you don't trust me, then it makes it exceptionally difficult.
Very well said. Excellent.
I hope I'm answering your questions. I'm sort of
no, you
rambling
are
on a little bit.
No worries. So, what we just to conclude the first part of our conversation today, we are saying that we need to look at organizational objectives at the same time, what impact we are creating for the employees when we are building the HR strategy. Um, we will need to build trust with our stakeholders, which includes the business leaders, at the same time our employees, and we are also need to understand that we are not just observer, or as you said, second cousin. We have to take the role at the table. We have to be equal partners with our business leaders to creating futures, and that should be the base of all our HR strategies.
100%, 110%. And to the extent I encourage that all HR professionals need to go out and meet clients. So if you're a service organization, if you're not a manufacturing organization, let's say you're a service organization. Let's use an example of IT. If you're an IT organization is designed for customers. You need to be involved in customer visits. The reason being, if I know what the customer's expectation is, then we can recruit effectively for the needs of the customer and the organization. And that shows that my interest is just not in the people aspect or the human resources aspect, but my interest is within the growth of the organization. So by me going to a client visit is going to add any value to the organization, then that is part of my strategy at the end of the day. So when I build my strategy, the key point I ask is, what are we going to do for the stakeholders? How are we going to work with the stakeholders? How will you build trust? How will you communicate? What support will you provide the stakeholder? Which, if it means that you have to go out with your manager to a client's site, then you need to be able to do that.
Wonderful. Makes sense. All right. So, Faiyaz, the next part of today's conversation is something we are calling as rapid musing. These are some questions which we want you to answer quickly, whatever comes to your mind.
I will try my best.
Fantastic. So, according to you, what will be the topmost HR deliverable in 2023?
Attraction and retention of employees.
Talent
So
attraction. Excellent.
talent attraction, 100%.
Because the market is today so competitive for good talent that
It is, and the skills and knowledge, and as you probably know better than I do, there is a large number of redundancies happening in the US at the moment, especially in the IT sector, and a lot of people are being impacted. But that is a process of the life cycle that's going through. But there is still a very high skill shortage in the world at the moment.
I agree. I agree with you. All right. Next question. What would be the most crucial skill for HR professional? HR skill.
Building trust with your stakeholders, because even today I'm repeating myself, but it is a fundamental aspect of working in HR to be able to build that trust. Build that trust with the employee. Employee should not be scared when HR says, please come to my office. The standard response is, what have I done?
What?
Am I in trouble? Why are you calling me? So, and that happens when there's no trust. If you build that trust with the employee, then when you say, come to my office, I need to talk to you, they should be smiling and going, absolutely. What are we discussing today? So building that trust is a important factor.
I'm so happy you said that, because I also personally very strongly believe that in this world of digitalization and internal chat centers and HR softwares, actually the impact HR person can create by just walking and like talking to the employee, it is really unparalleled to that.
Absolutely. Doing site visits, if you have different sites or different offices, doing toolbox meetings, attending town hall meetings by the CEO, and being available at that time and being proactive in your approach with the employees will build that trust. That fear factor has to go.
Fantastic. All right, next question. What is your most favorite HR knowledge source, a book, or anything which you really like?
I'm going to take an extra minute to answer this question, because this is my personal belief, and I want to share it with everyone. Is reading only HR books is not the only pathway to be able to learn about HR. But reading books about organization strategy is where your strength comes in. So one of my favorite authors is Ram Charan, which most viewers will absolutely know. And one of his books is The Discipline of Execution. And I'll get the exact name for it. And that book is an absolute fundamental book that I encourage most. It's called, just let me bring it up. It's called Execution. How do you execute the strategy? Because we all think things through. We all come up with grand plans, but we don't. The discipline of getting things done. That's what it comes down to. Right. So if you ever have to read a book, I strongly recommend you read that book.
Great, fabulous. Who is your professional role model?
That is a very difficult question to answer. Who's my professional role model? I would have normally said somebody like Barack Obama, whom I look up to immensely. But in my professional life, my role models have been and continue to be the CEOs I work with. Because if I can learn from the CEO, if they're running a multi-million-dollar organization, then they are, and role models can change. So, I'm not suggesting I'm flippant about my role models, but I do like my role models to be active and providing immediate responses if as required. So, and being close to them. So I would have to say my CEOs as I go along.
Fantastic. The last question for today, Faiyaz, is what is your favorite people mantra?
add value.
Simple.
Simple. That's it. My question to any HR professional, and I had my HR strategy meeting only 2 days ago, and my only question to the team was, how are we going to add value? That's it. And I said, let's start from there. How are we adding value?
Fantastic. This actually goes with the purpose of PeoplePoint, because we are also trying to create and add value to the knowledge source of our audience and all the uncertainty around us.
Absolutely. And I appreciate the opportunity given to me today to share whatever little knowledge I have with you and the absolute viewers. And I thank the National HRD Network and the Pune chapter, and you for making the effort. You've been exceptional.
Thank you, Faiyaz. Thank you so much for your kindness. And it was wonderful to discuss this topic with you. Thank you for giving us your time. And thank you to our audience. As always, they've been very kind to PeoplePoint, and we really appreciate all your shares, your subscription, your comments. So please keep them coming, and wish that we bring more and more such conversations to you. Thank you so much.